Well, it's week 3 of the OHL Power Rankings, and it's a sign of the times when you're waking up and seeing some snowflakes. It's the end of October. We're heading into November. It's just a sign of the times, but at least we could be inside and talk about some OHL hockey. It's another week of the Power Rankings. There's been some movement. A new team representing the 20th spot. So if you're a Windsor Spitfire fan, that's some good news because we're starting off with number 20, down one spot this week. It's the Kingston Frontenacs. They went 1-1 over the week, wins over the Oshawa Generals and a loss to the Mississauga Steelheads. So it was a tough week for Kingston, of course, coming off the coaching change. Luca Caputi being let go at the beginning of the week, replaced by Troy Mann. He's now behind the bench, but he did get his first career OHL win as a head coach in the OHL with that win against the Oshawa Generals, but they had a tough game against Mississauga on the weekend. They were up in the hockey game and then gave up 3 unanswered to Porter Martone, who got the natural hat trick in a 4-3 win. So a tough way to end the week. There's room for improvement with this Kingston Frontenacs team. They will get better. They do have 2 games this week. Both of them are at home. They're going to face the Barrie Colts and the Guelph Storm. So we'll see if they can build some momentum and get back in the OHL Power Ranking. Try and find a way out of the basement. Number 19, up one spot, the Windsor Spitfires. They went 1-1-1, and they're 3-3. Started off with some great news. Alex Christopoulos, he is back in the lineup. He was a leading man on that team last year with the offense, putting up over 45 goals last season. He scored in his debut for this season against the Ottawa 67s and then earned 5 points in 3 games. So Christopoulos is going to be a huge plus for that Spitfires team. It's a positive sign that maybe the Spitfires can climb out of the basement in the Western Conference, but it won't be easy. They host Kitchener Thursday night before playing 2 games in Sault Ste. Marie. And also to note, the Windsor Spitfires acquiring Connor Toms from the Sioux Greyhounds this morning, sending to the Sioux is a 12th round pick. And for Connor Toms, he's played 12 games so far this season, good for 3 points. Just 3 assists. So Tom's more of a stay-at-home defenseman, not really known for his offense. But, for the Windsor Spitfires, this is probably a good piece to try and shore up that back end, get some more depth. And for Connor Toms, he'll be playing his former team this weekend with a pair of games at the GFL Memorial Center. So Toms, I think that's a good pickup for Windsor. We'll have to wait and see if I can turn things around. Number 18, down one spot, the Brantford Bulldogs. They were riding a 3-game winning streak when they lost to Barrie on Saturday, but they were just passed in the power rankings. That's the only reason why they dropped. Really, I think Brantford should be higher, but we'll have to wait and see what happens in the coming week. They went 1-1 in their 2 games, including a big overtime victory against the North Bay Battalion. It was a beautiful goal from Merrick Van Acker. If you haven't seen the highlight, he deked out Ty Nelson before getting it around Charlie Robertson. So it's a beautiful highlight goal from Van Acker. And for the Bulldogs, they do have 3 games this week, starting with Guelph at home on Wednesday, and then they're on the road to London and Oshawa. So we'll see if the Bulldogs can get back to their winning ways after losing 5-1 on Saturday. But after seeing Brantford on the weekend, they've got a really good team. I like Nick Lardis. I like Van Acker. They've got some real good talent on that team. Plus Matteo Drobak, solid in net for the Bulldogs. So I would expect Brantford to turn things around as it's just a little dip in the power rankings. Now, this one, the Saginaw Spirit, they're number 17. They're down 5 spots. And I think it's too early to panic for the Saginaw Spirit team as they went 0-2-1 over the weekend. But you have to be a little bit concerned. They're the Memorial Cup hosts. They got 1 point in a loss to the Sioux in a shootout. They did pick up Ethan Hay to start off the week from the Flint Firebirds. He scored in his debut, but that was it. The Saginaw Spirit, they're still generating some chemistry, but you kind of want more from this team. If they're going to be hosting the Memorial Cup, you kind of expect them to dominate during the regular season, much like we've seen teams in the past. I'm actually going to put a video together comparing the start for the Saginaw Spirit against the other OHL hosts, and just to show where they rank compared to some of the more recent OHL Memorial Cup hosts. But it's just 2 games this week for Saginaw, and it's still, I think this team will turn it around. They will be one of the top teams in the Western Conference, and they have a tough test at home. They're going to play the Erie Otters first before hosting the Mississauga Steelheads at the Dow Event Center. And with Mississauga being the first place team right now in the OHL points wise. That's going to be a huge test for Saginaw to try and turn this season around. Coming in at number 16, they haven't changed. It's the Niagara Ice Dogs. They've been playing much better of late. They're 2-0, 2-1 in their last 5 games, so they haven't lost in regulation in 5 straight. Their last 3 games all went into extra time. They lost to Peterborough in overtime on home ice before winning in overtime against Windsor, and then they lost in a shootout to Sarnia. So the Niagara Ice Dogs, hard to play against. And Matthew Paris, he's been standing out. He had 5 points in the game against Windsor and then added a goal in yesterday's game against Sarnia. So I really like the play of Paris. Of course, Niagara acquiring him from the London Knights. And for this week, Ice Dogs 2 games. First, they travel to Sudbury on a Friday night, and then they come back to Meridian Center on Saturday to face the North Bay Battalion. A bit of a tough travel schedule if you're the Niagara Ice Dogs, first having to go all the way up to the Nickel City before playing back at home the following night. But for the Ice Dogs, we'll see if they can continue their current point streak and if that'll translate into climbing the power rankings. Coming in at number 15, no change as well. It's the Erie Otters. They went 1-1-1 for their 3-3. Started with a dominant win in Barrie before losing in overtime to the Kitchener Rangers and then losing on home ice to the Petes. It was a rough travel for them. They came up the Thursday morning to play Barrie before traveling to Kitchener that night and then playing the Rangers the following day. So bus legs, I think, were a factor in that game against the Peterborough Petes. But the play of Carey Terrance, he is the real deal. He's riding a 10-game point streak right now with the Otters. Recorded 2 goals and an assist in the game against the Colts, and then he scored the lone goal. Or actually, no, his 1 goal in that Barrie game. In my notes, I wanted to remember this. It was the highlight variety. He was left all alone in front of Ben West, and he deked him out and was able to tuck it around. As Carey Terrance, a fantastic player with the Erie Otters, and definitely worth the price of admission. They do have another 3-game road trip this weekend. It's not a 3-3. They kind of break it up. They have stops in Saginaw, Flint, and Sarnia. So we'll see if the Otters can continue to rack up some points. Now, this is the biggest climber of the week. It's the Flint Firebirds. They're up 4 spots. They traded Ethan Hay to Saginaw to start the week, and I think for some fans, they're kind of wondering, is this a sign that maybe Flint's looking to the future? Are they kind of packing it in already? But you know what? They're getting wins, and I'm super impressed with the Flint Firebirds. They went 2-0-1 last week. 3 out of 4 possible points against the Sioux Greyhounds, who lead the West Division. Zachary Giroux, 5 points in those games, and Jeremy Martin, 3 goals over those 3 games. So the Flint Firebirds still looking really good and competitive in that West Division. They do travel to Owen Sound Wednesday night before hosting Erie and Mississauga this weekend. So that's going to be a big game against the Steelheads when they arrive at the Dort. Coming in at 13, the Oshawa Generals, they fell 2 spots in the OHL Power Ranking. They went 0-2 with losses to Kingston and Owen Sound. I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe the Generals are too high in the power rankings, so expect a correction if they don't improve in the coming week. They play a home and home with the Peterborough Petes before hosting the Brantford Bulldogs on Sunday. So Oshawa is an interesting team. Of course, they're still waiting for Callum Ritchie, and when Ritchie gets back in that lineup, that should improve things. I do like the lineup in Oshawa, and I just think that maybe things are a little off. They are also the second lowest goals scoring team in the Eastern Conference. They only have 34 to their credit. The only team lower than them in the East are the Ottawa 67s with 33 goals. So Oshawa, I think the offense just needs to figure things out, and especially when they get Callum Ritchie back, expect things to turn around. Coming in at number 12, the Owen Sound Attack. They are up 2 spots. Darren Rumble, he had some time to come up with systems and just get the players to figure out how things are going to work, and it paid off. They went 2-0 over the weekend. Wins against the Kitchener Rangers and the Oshawa Generals. Cedric Guindon, he had a big weekend, 3 goals, 1 assist in just the 2 games. Guindon, he is so much fun to watch, and it's going to be a tough week. So Guindon and company, they're going to be they're going to be home to Flint Wednesday night before traveling to Sarnia on Friday, and then they host the London Knights on Saturday. And whenever Owen Sound and London meet, it's going to be a good game. I've been to the Bayshore for one of those matchups, and the atmosphere is electric. So the Owen Sound Attack, they're going to look to continue their momentum going into the weekend, but it's going to be a challenging one, that's for sure. Number 11 on the rankings, the Ottawa 67s. They are down 2 spots, and it was a rough road trip on the 401 corridor. The 67 started with a 6-4 win on the road in Windsor before losing in overtime to the London Knights, and then they were blown out 6-1 by the Guelph Storm. Not a great way to end that road trip, a long bus ride back to the nation's capital. Brady Stonehouse, though, he has been a bright spot for Ottawa. He's on a 6-game point streak and had a goal and 3 assists over the road trip. So Stonehouse continuing to lead the charge offensively. As I already mentioned, they're the lowest scoring team in the Eastern Conference, but they've been having some good goaltending over the stretch to start the season, and they've got a good defense. So I think for Ottawa, I think this is a team that's going to be competitive in that East Division. And this weekend, they're back at home. They've got 2 games. They're going to be going up against the Guelph Storm, so a bit of a rematch, and then they're going to wrap up the weekend at home against the Barrie Colts. Coming in at number 10, up 3 spots, it's the Peterborough Petes. They went 2-0 on their road trip through Niagara and Erie. Samuel Maillet, he was the overtime hero against the Ice Dogs in that game. He had a 3-point night in St. Catharines. So Maillet, he's a fan favorite right now in Peterborough after their win last year for the OHL Championship, and he continues to get it done. Shots in that game were not a problem for Peterborough. They put up 53 shots on net. Owen Flores for Niagara kept busy, but in the end, the Petes able to get the win. It is another light week for the Petes. I put light in quotation marks. They have a home-and-home against the Oshawa Generals, so that's one of the more classic rivalries in the Ontario Hockey League. So saying it's a light week when you have to play your biggest rival in back-to-back games is kind of putting it lightly. Number 9, down 2 spots, the London Knights. Now, London only fell in the power ranking because they played 1 game, and it's not because of their play. The London Knights, they earned a 3-2 win in overtime on home ice against the Ottawa 67s. And in that game, Dale Hunter reached the milestone as the second most winningest coach in OHL history. With the win, he only trails Brian Kilray now. So congratulations to Dale Hunter on that. The Knights, they will be playing a 3-3 this weekend. It starts at home against the Brantford Bulldogs before going to Owen Sound and then hosting the Kitchener Rangers. So it starts off with the Bulldogs, who they've already beat once this season, and then you got a rivalry up at the Bay Shore, and then you're home to the Rangers, who've been one of the hottest teams to start the regular season. So a big test there for London, but for that lineup, I'm sure they're eager to get back on the ice and show what they're capable of, especially against their rivals from Kitchener. Coming in at number 8, the Barrie Colts. They're up 2 spots. The week started rough with a loss at home against the Erie Otters, but then they handed Mississauga their first loss on home ice with a 6-1 victory before putting the Brantford Bulldogs away 5-1 on Saturday. So what started off as a team that looked a little hesitant and maybe a little nervous on their heels, so that to suddenly they're on their toes, controlling the play. Bo Jelsma had a big weekend, 3 goals, 2 assists. Edward Chalet goals in back-to-back games. And also the play of Sam Hillebrandt. He was outstanding in the 2 wins. He gave up 2 goals on 69 shots for those 2 wins. So Hillebrandt standing tall. Now the Colts, they are on the road this week. They have stops in Kingston and Ottawa. And with that note, I'm going to have a very special interview coming up this week with a player who's from the Ottawa area. So you'll want to stay tuned for that interview in the coming days. I'm not going to say who it is. I don't want to spoil it, but you can probably figure if it's from the Ottawa area. That kind of narrows it down to which player we'll be interviewing here on the channel. Coming in at number 7, it's the Guelph Storm. They are up 1 spot. They went 2-1 with big wins over North Bay and Ottawa, but it was a tough 5-2 loss on the road against the Sudbury Wolves. The Sudbury Wolves, they are playing some amazing hockey right now. The Storm, if you look at the standings, are just 2 points behind Kitchener for top spot in the Western Conference. So this Guelph team quietly putting on pressure there at the top. This is a team I think that could threaten for top spot in the Midwest Division, especially if they continue to get the play that they are from Braden Gillespie in net. He is first in goals against average in the OHL at 2.02, and he's also first in save percentage at 932. So Gillespie, fantastic in net for the Guelph Storm. Guelph, they're on the road for their next 3 games. They travel to Brantford before heading up to Ottawa and Kingston. So the Guelph Storm, if they can get a couple more wins, expect them to be closer to the top of the OHL Power Rankings. Coming in at number 6, the Sarnia Sting. They are down 1 spot. It was a 2-1 week for Sarnia. Their only loss was against Windsor, which is kind of tough considering Windsor's at the bottom of the standings. They also needed a shootout to defeat the Niagara Ice Dogs yesterday. But this is a young team. They're learning on the fly, and they're doing a great job continuing to get points. Sandis Vilmanis, he leads the team in points with 16, while Tyson Doucette, he's number one in goals for the Sarnia Sting with 8. So Vilmanis and Doucette, they're getting things done, and the Sarnia Sting, a fun team to watch. And they do have 2 games this week, both at home. They're going to face the Owen Sound Attack and the Erie Otters. Coming in at number 5, the Sioux Greyhounds. They're down 1 spot. They went 2-1 over the weekend. Goal scoring continues to be easy for them, it seems. 63 goals for puts them second behind Kitchener, who has 65. Their only loss was to Flint to open the week. They earned wins then after against Saginaw and Flint in extra time. Kirill Kudrytsev, he had a big week, putting up 6 points in 3 games. Kudrytsev looking fantastic in a Greyhounds uniform. Artu Karki still second in the league in goals with 12. He put up 2 in the last game against Flint. And so the Greyhounds continuing to hold top spot in that West Division. They do host the Windsor Spitfires for a pair of games this weekend. So that's going to be interesting, especially after trading Connor Toms this morning to Windsor. So they're going to see their former teammate this weekend. Coming in at number 4, the Kitchener Rangers. They're down just 1 spot. The Rangers kind of looking like they've hit a bit of a speed wobble. They went 1-1. Matthew Sopp was the overtime hero in the win against the Erie Otters. And then Philippe Machard, he had 4 points in his first 2 games back after being sent down from Montreal Canadiens. However, they lost in the Owen Sound Attack after not being able to hold on to a lead late in the game. That one was a little back and forth, and the Owen Sound Attack played their systems perfectly and were able to pull out the 2 points. So Kitchener looking a little uneasy at the moment. The Rangers, they do have 3 games this weekend. They're going to go to Windsor Thursday night before hosting North Bay and then visiting London on Sunday. So big games against the Battalion and the Knights, and that's going to be a huge test. And I'm sure we'll have to wait and see how that impacts the OHL Power Rankings. Coming in at number 3, it's the Sudbury Wolves, and they are up 3 spots. Don't be surprised if you see Sudbury taking over the top spot in the Power Rankings soon, because they are a threat in the Eastern Conference. They went 1-1, a big win against Guelph, where Kieran Walton put up 2 goals, and then lost a hard-fought match to the North Bay Battalion yesterday. Also to note, Quentin Musty went down with an injury in the game against North Bay, so we'll have to see if he's going to miss any time because of that. If they lose Quentin Musty, that's going to be a huge loss, but still, they have other pieces to fill the void. When you think of Dvorsky, who recently joined the team, you still have David Goyette, Yearwood scoring at will. You got Villeneuve. So I wouldn't be too worried if you're a Sudbury Wolves fan, but at the same time, maybe a little concerned because Quint Musty, he's been off to a great start since coming back from the San Jose Sharks. They do have a big game at home Wednesday night against the North Bay Battalion, and then they host Niagara on Friday. Coming in at number 2, the Mississauga Steelheads. They are down 1 spot. They held the top spot in the power ranking the last 2 weeks after going 1-1. They opened the weekend with a 6-1 loss to Barrie. That was their first loss on home ice, and then came back to defeat Kingston 4-2. This is a young team. They've still got some learning to do, and they're going to have the growing pains. But Porter Martone, man, scored that natural hat trick in the win against the Kingston Frontenacs. He is something else. So don't panic with Mississauga. They seem to be a team that's going to be competing for top spot in that Central. They do travel to Michigan this weekend with stops in Saginaw and Flint. And I'm thinking that Mississauga-Flint game could be a lot of fun to watch. And hopefully we'll get the Misa's brothers going head-to-head in that Saginaw-Mississauga game. And leaving us with the number 1 spot, the North Bay Battalion. They moved up 1 spot. With Mississauga's loss to Barrie and North Bay's comeback against the Sudbury Wolves, I feel like the troops deserve top spot in the power rankings this week. They went 1-1-1, so not the best of weeks. They won't hold the top spot for long if they continue to play like that. But Anthony Romani had a 4-point weekend, including 2 goals against the Wolves. Well, it was good to see Liam Arnsby also getting on the score sheet for North Bay, the captain of the battalion. He returned from injury with a goal in the game against Guelph. So for the North Bay Battalion, there's a solid group. You got Dom DiVincentis, who you can just have so much confidence in between the pipes. And, this is a North Bay team that I think, surprising a lot of people, no one was really expecting them to maybe compete for top spot in the Central Division, but it's very fascinating right now because the top 3 teams all come from the Central. So you've got North Bay, Mississauga, Sudbury, and I think it makes it more exciting when you've got teams that are playing at this kind of level to start the regular season. Mind you, it's still early. Teams are still going to make moves, but it's still exciting to see with the OHL Power Rankings. So the Battalion, they do travel to Sudbury on Wednesday night for the Battle of Highway 17 before going to Kitchener Friday nights and then Niagara on Saturday. So that is the Power Rankings for week number 3. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the Power Rankings. Do you think North Bay should be the top team or somebody else? And what do you think about the Saginaw Spirit? I'd love to see your comments down below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you're notified about future videos. I'm already putting together a video looking at the Saginaw Spirit and their rough start. And we also have an interview coming up with a Barrie Colt forward who is having a pretty solid season. I'm just going to leave it at that. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you again soon.